Here comes Notre Dame to the national championship game led by the best coach in America right now.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day in your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, which Notre Dame had late in the game. The NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Win or lose, visit FanDuel.com to get started. Does James Franklin deserve the heat for another Penn State close big game loss? I don't believe so. And Carson Beck is in the portal? Excuse me. Yeah, we're getting to all that today. Great show upcoming. Let's start with Marcus Freeman. I describe him as the best coach in the country right now because he's doing more with less. Ryan Day and Ohio State are the best team at the moment, but Marcus Freeman is putting on a coaching clinic throughout the playoffs. He is just out-scheming, out-maneuvering, out-manipulating the coaching staff on the other sideline. And the rest of his coaching staff deserves a lot of credit as well. But this all starts with the head coach. He's the guy who makes the hires. He's the guy who sets the game plan. He's the guy who says we're doing this or we're doing that. He is making the right call. Go for it, kick it, punt it, run that. It is just consistently right. The game plans are there. His teams are well coached. And Notre Dame's box scores are never going to blow you away. A backup quarterback had to throw 7 passes in this game for Notre Dame, and yet they won. Riley Leonard had 223 yards, which was actually a lot for the Notre Dame offense, and 2 interceptions, and they won. They won the football. Penn State's a darn good football team. Notre Dame was just better situationally, and what I felt coming into this game and why I picked Notre Dame was I trusted their defense more, and I trusted their special teams more. Well, guess what? Notre Dame's field goal kicker, Mitch Jeter, perfect. 2 of 2, made all of his extra points. And the punter, James Rendell, 4 punts. They were all downed inside the 20. They just play field position. They play special team. They just play winning football. And that's a credit to the head coach. I don't believe that Notre Dame has the same caliber of roster of Ohio State or even Texas. I expect them to be an underdog to either of those teams, regardless of who they play in the national championship game. But Marcus Freeman is just finding a way to win. It doesn't always look the same. Notre Dame ran for 2.8 yards a carry in this one. Penn State's defense was really good, so they got a little bit more out of the passing attack. So they were just a little bit better, and then they come up with a big stop late in the game, pick off Drew Aller, go down, kick a field goal, game over. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois and is going to play for a national championship game. You make of that whatever you like. I don't know if Notre Dame gets in a 14 playoff. Guess what? Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. Once they lost that game, you knew it. They got to win them all. Well, they did. So let's first give them credit for that. But the other aspect that makes this so impressive for Marcus Freeman is that loss for a lot of teams could have sent you into a spiral. But Marcus Freeman had been there before. My favorite television show of all time is The West Wing. And I don't know that this story originates from there, but it's one of my favorite scenes on the show. One of the characters, Josh Lyman, is struggling, and another character, Leo McGarry, who's kind of their, everybody's father figure, comes and tells a story about how a guy is stuck down in a hole. And a doctor walks by and throws him a prescription, and a rabbi walks by and sends him a prayer, and the friend walks by and jumps down in the hole. And the friend says, "Are you nuts? Now we're both down here." And the other friend says, "Yeah, but I've been down here before and I know the way out." Marcus Freeman has lost to Marshall, a bad Stanford team. Started 0-3 in his coaching career. He'd seen what the bottom looks like, and he has climbed Notre Dame all the way out of it. Not just over the last couple of years, but in this season. You know what it takes to keep the faith of a locker room when you have a loss like that? That's one of the biggest statistical upsets in the history of college football. They were 28.5-point favorites. They lost outright. It was the biggest day and probably will continue to be the biggest day as Notre Dame keeps having success in the history of NIU football. It was one of the most stunning things I've ever seen. I think I picked Notre Dame to win and cover in that game. But they go and lose, and yet Notre Dame has just come out every week, regardless of who they're playing. No, they don't have the toughest strength of schedule in the world. And yeah, you can argue they should have to join a conference, and this is why. But 3 teams have had a crack at them now, and they're 0 for 3. And I didn't think Penn State or Notre Dame, I didn't think either team was decisively better than the other in this one. I thought Notre Dame was better than Georgia. I thought Notre Dame was better than Indiana, and the scores reflected that. But for Notre Dame to not just be able to maximize their talent, adapt to whatever game plan is put out in front of them, or whichever one presents itself, because Notre Dame doesn't have wins that often look the same. If you told me going into this game that Notre Dame would get outrushed 204 to 116, I probably would have told you, I guess they're losing this game, which wouldn't have surprised me because Penn State is a really good team with a bunch of really good players, and Abdul Carter was banged up and made an impact in this game anyway. But for Notre Dame, game in and game out, to just go find a way, they haven't found a team that can overwhelm them. I think they could run into that if Ohio State beats Texas, which I expect them to. I think Texas could overwhelm Notre Dame. But if I'm Notre Dame watching the other semifinal game later tonight, I'm rooting so hard for Texas. So incredibly hard. 2 reasons. Number 1, Ohio State has a better roster. That is probably the best roster in all of college football, and they're absolutely on fire. I mean, you can't be playing better ball going into the semifinal than Ohio State has for the last couple of games. They took a couple of really good teams, top 10 caliber team, and they ran them off the field. They threw it past them most of the time, but it wasn't particularly close. So I want no part of that, number 1, if I'm Notre Dame. And number 2, Texas has had a greater propensity to play those sorts of games that Notre Dame has just found a way to win. Close, competitive, momentum swings, comes down to a play or two, be good situationally, be good on special teams. It's not always going to look pretty, but you just make it work. Notre Dame in this game. You know, another good sign of coaching, having good game planning and having your players ready to go. What do you do on 3rd down? Because that doesn't just reflect what you did on 1st and 2nd down. It reflects how prepared you are situationally on either side of the ball for what you expect the defense to be able to do and how well you can adapt to things that are working on the other side. Penn State offensively in this game, on 3rd down, 3 of 11. Notre Dame, 11 for 17. That's your ball game. How do you overcome getting outrun by almost 100 yards? That right there. That is the Grand Canyon of 3rd down disparities. And Marcus Freeman just put on another coaching clinic, and he is the best coach in college football right now. Ryan Day is a new age golfer who's working with the best equipment around, and it helps a lot. You still have to, take the club face, put it on the ball. Marcus Freeman feels like he's going through these playoffs with wooden clubs, but he just keeps finding a way to win no matter what. That's why he's the best coach in college football right now. I'll never count out Notre Dame because they just keep finding a way to win, and I've liked them for a long time here on the show, but boy, oh boy. Ohio State has looked really, really good. I think Ohio State wins and is comfortable. 30-13, that's my final score prediction. You drop yours below. James Franklin loses another big game. All right, no one's surprised, right? I'm not surprised. I picked him to lose. Does he deserve blame, though? I do believe you should know this episode is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of the endless waiting, wondering, and worrying about your taxes? Well, now it's a thing of the past. With Intuit TurboTax, your taxes don't need to be stressful or complicated. They are capable of being both of those things. TurboTax is here to help. No more waiting for answers. No more wondering if you're missing out on deductions. Whether you've got one form or 20, TurboTax experts give your taxes their undivided attention, which is what they deserve. That's what you deserve, and you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on what really matters. You won't have to lift a finger, but you'll get peace of mind knowing your taxes are being handled by the pros. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today. Get matched with your expert who's ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. I imagine Penn State fans are collectively singing some version of "Hello, Darkness, My Old Friend." James Franklin, big game, he loses. Yeah, I know. I've seen this before. I predicted it to happen. I'm not ripping James Franklin here for two reasons. Number one, there is something to be said for a guy that has his team at a high level every year and in position and shows they're capable of winning big games. They're just not winning them. That doesn't mean they never will or that they never have, as a matter of fact. So let's start there. Secondly, the decision is going to be the most scrutinized because there's a Z in that word, in this spot is what Greg McElroy talked about right before the Penn State offense came out on the field. You've got a veteran quarterback in Drew Aller who's thrown just 9 interceptions in his career. Compared to 50 touchdowns. This is not his first go-around. And you've got a chance to go down the field, kick a field goal to advance to the national championship game. And Greg McElroy says, I'm being aggressive, I'm trusting him. And James Franklin was in that same headspace. Let's trust our guy. Let's see. Let's put a drive together. Let's not go conservative. And Drew Aller makes a mistake. He makes a bad decision. He's trying to throw deep across the field. He's got a huge NFL caliber arm. He put too much faith in it in that one particular moment. I'm sure if you ask him about it, he'd say, I shouldn't have thrown the ball. I should have just thrown it away. I don't think he needs you, random YouTube viewer, to explain to him why that was a poor decision in hindsight. But the decision by James Franklin to trust him, absolutely not. I understand it didn't work out. That doesn't mean it was the wrong decision. It just means that sometimes in the bounce of ball of games, it doesn't go your way. And it didn't go Penn State's way. But for James Franklin, here's where you're at. Not that he is considering what the outside noise is going to be or what the criticism is, but let's just say he were more concerned with that than actually winning the football game, which is his first thought, which is we have a chance to go win the football game. Let's go ahead and do it. I'm supportive of that mentality. There's a line. I do not feel like he crossed it in any way, shape, or form. You know, Dan Campbell in last year's NFC Championship game. There was a 4th down in there he probably shouldn't have gone for. But do I think it's wrong to approach a game with the thinking, I trust my players, I want to go win? No, I do not. But even if James Franklin had gone the other way and gone conservative and then they lost the game, maybe they would have won the game. But what if they lost it with conservative play calling? What if they had lost the football game because they came out, they handed the ball off a couple times trying to break a big run, and then called a screen pass, punted, went to overtime, and lost? James Franklin would be ripped up and down, left and right, diagonally both directions to make an asterisk worth of how much ripping of his reputation would have taken place. Now, that's the furthest thing from his mind, but that was the other option here. Your option, I know Drew Aller wasn't having a great day. I get that. He was 12 of 22 for 135 yards, had not yet thrown an interception, and unfortunately, the last pass of the season is an interception. But when you're in that spot, you have to have the confidence in a kid, in a player, I don't care what sport you're in. If someone is a go-to guy, if he is a leader, if he is a star player for a team, you lean on them in big spots. You don't take the ball out of their hands. What's the better opportunity? What's the better chance? Because guess what? Aller's going to have to make a throw. Even if you play for overtime, which I don't think is something you should ever be doing if you have a chance to go win the game with your season on the line and a national championship berth on the line. If you have the chance to do that, you do it. And when you get in that spot, what is it fans always clamor for? Or media people? Put the ball in the hands of your best players. He did that. And he went out and made a mistake. Yeah, it happens sometimes. But if you were to think back, what's a good example here? 2016 NBA Finals. Game 7 at Golden State. Steph Curry is not having the best game of his career, but Kyrie Irving hits a shot at the other end. Are you going to go to Harrison Barnes for the game-winning shot? Or are you going to go to Steph Curry? No, you're going to go to Steph Curry. Because guys of that caliber that are cut from that cloth are often able to overcome such situations. And if you're a head coach, I would want my team's head coach to have the sort of belief in whoever's playing quarterback that he'd say, we're going to put the ball in his hands and go try to win the football game. Yeah, he hadn't been having his best day. But I've seen basketball players go 2 for 10 and then hit a big shot when it counts. And I have seen quarterbacks, I've watched Patrick Mahomes, which Drew Aller is obviously not, but I've watched Mahomes struggle for the entire game over and over again. They can't move the ball. And who is Andy Reid going to when the game's on the line? Is he trying to hand the ball off and get sneaky with a run? Is he just calling a little dump-off screen pass and hope the defense makes a mistake? No. He snaps the ball to his quarterback and says, hey, 15, go make a play. And Penn State said, hey, 15, go make a play. And he made a mistake. He made a mistake. And the Notre Dame defense made a play and it loses him the game. But that decision, that mentality is going to be criticized. I understand. I am squarely in James Franklin's corner there. 100%. And McElroy said it right before the drive started. This is not a guy who's had a history of turnovers. This is a veteran quarterback. You have a chance to go win the game. Why would you take the ball out of his hands? I understand Penn State fans are understandably frustrated. I get it. Frustrated, annoyed, disappointed, sad, all of that stuff. I've been there. I was there. I'm an Oregon guy. I was there not that long ago. Would you rather have lost the game not giving your best players an opportunity to go make a play? Would you rather Abdul Carter have nursed the shoulder injury a bit more in this one? Or do you want to put him on the field no matter what? That's what you're going to do in that spot. You're going to trust that your best players give you the best chance to win. Because that's how you got there. And I know Aller wasn't having a spectacular game. They couldn't complete a pass to a wide receiver. But it's not as if they didn't complete passes. It's not as if I haven't seen it happen before. No objection whatsoever. Fully support James Franklin in supporting Riley Leonard in that spot and telling his offense coordinator, Andy Kotelnicki, go win us a football game. Let's go play for a national championship. Yeah, this is another anti-feather in the cap for James Franklin of can't win the big one. Yep, it is. Not going to argue with you there. But he didn't throw that football. He made the right decision. He coached a heck of a game. And unfortunately, it didn't go his team's way. But he was in the right. 50 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Veteran quarterback. You got to trust that guy. You got to trust that guy can go out there and make a play for you. Or else, why is he your quarterback? Why is he back there? If not to go and be able to win you a game in that spot. So, speaking of quarterbacks, Miami might have their next guy. First, I'm going to tell you this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200. $200 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. You don't even have to be right. You could have picked Penn State to win the game with your first $5 bet. You get 200 in bonus bets either way. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. Do you want to bet the college football playoff national championship game? Do you believe Texas is underrated as a 5.5-point dog? You go put your money where your mouth is over at FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. FanDuel.com. That's the place to go. Where else would you? I don't even know. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Miami's next quarterback could be Carson Beck. Stop me if you have heard the stars aligning in this manner before. A veteran quarterback who has started a lot of games, thrown for a lot of yards, has a bit of a turnover problem, declared for the NFL draft, but is now in the transfer portal. Deja vu, Hurricanes. This could be your guy. Now, this has not happened yet, but this is a shocking reversal. Cam Ward wasn't as surprising that he pulled his name out of the NFL draft, but boy, sure was a good decision. And by the way, I think Carson Beck is making the right decision for his professional future here. This class or next class, he'll be a top 5 NFL draft quarterback prospect in whatever class he comes out in, just because he's got a lot of physical traits. He's now going to be very old. I mean, 2025 will be his 6th year of eligibility. 6th. That's a lot. He hasn't played and started every single year. I mean, in the COVID season, he appeared in one game and didn't attempt to pass. But this is a guy who has back-to-back 3,000-plus yard seasons, who regressed this year in both yardage and interceptions. He doubled his interceptions from a year ago. Cam Ward had a fumble problem, by the way. Then Ward went down to Miami, and it was all better. And you know what? I think Miami can give Carson Beck a better supporting cast than what he had at Georgia this year. Worst kept secret that was on display in the semifinal or the quarterfinal against Notre Dame. Georgia's offensive line was not as good as it should have been, and something that we all saw this year, Georgia's receiving core was terrible. They had among the most drops in all of college football. It was not there. So Cam Ward was at Washington State, where he had really good receivers, a poor offensive line, and no running game. Then he went to Miami. He got an offensive line. He got more of a running game. He again had good receivers, and he was a Heisman finalist and the second leading passer in all of college football to only Kyle McCord, who of course kept him out of the college football playoff in the last week of the regular season. So Carson Beck could go to Miami and succeed. I'm confident in that. Shannon Dawson is an offensive coordinator. That was a right hire for Mario Cristobal. They had Josh Gaddis before, but then all of a sudden, don't know that this is the right move. So what did Mario do? What any smart coach would do. Recognize this is not what we were hoping for and make a change quickly. Like Whiplash said in Iron Man 2, amen. Don't get too attached to things. Learn to let go. That was the best Whiplash I had. I didn't think it was terrible. Let me know in the comments below. But, and of course he was throwing that line back in Hammer's face. But the whole concept of bringing in a veteran guy like this, working once for Miami, just fits the bill that this would work again. But this is not the only place Carson Beck could wind up. So this was not a reversal anybody really saw coming, and the initial reports were Miami's the favorite. Miami's favorite, and I went, whoa, that makes a lot of sense, and all those Cam Ward data points just clicked in my head. But then it came out, hold on, Miami's a favorite, but they're not the only team. Ohio State is in the mix. Whoa. And Texas Tech is in the mix. Whoa. First of all, I don't know that Texas Tech wants Carson Beck. Are you just throwing in the towel on Baron Morton? I know he got banged up a bit this year, but I mean, I don't know. I would not like for either party to have that be where Carson Beck winds up. Ohio State, on the other hand, is highly intriguing. So the Buckeyes had all these quarterbacks this year and from past recruiting cycles, and some of them are leaving, not all of them. And you'd like to think that this guy or the other guy, I mean, at one point they had 5 blue chip scholarship quarterbacks in the room at the same time. And all of a sudden, a couple of those guys are leaving. Will Howard's gone after this year. So the veteran thing worked for Ohio State this season very, very well. Jeremiah Smith will still be there. Ohio State will still have a great roster. Certainly it won't be as talented as this one that may go on to win the national championship. But they're still going to have one of the 5 best rosters probably in all of college football. They are not falling out of the top 10. And in their own conference, I don't think they're falling out of the top 3. And I don't know that they're out of the top 2. So that's an appeal that Miami cannot make. Ohio State can say, look at this player and understand how good he is. Look at the boost in completion percentage for Will Howard this year. Will Howard has been a solid quarterback over the course of his college career, and he had logged 4 seasons at Kansas State before transferring to Ohio State. Here were his numbers by season at Kansas State. 9 games played, 54%, 8 touchdowns, 10 picks. Then in 2021, 6 games played, 54%, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. 2022, 60%, 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. 2023, 61%, 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. 2024, 3,490 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 9 picks. He'd never thrown for 25 touchdowns in a year. He went for 32. He hadn't hit 2,700 yards passing. He will hit 35 once, they finish the playoff game. I mean, by the end of the season, Will Howard could have a 4,000-yard campaign. Yes, that's postseason's part of it, but that's part of the appeal, isn't it? So Ohio State and Miami make a lot of sense here. Mario Cristobal is going into year 4. And it was a disappointing end to what was overall a successful season for the Hurricanes, in which they took a major step forward as a program and showed, hey, we can push to be the top of the ACC and in the college football playoff discussion. But now they have to reload at quarterback. And do they feel like the young guys on their roster are ready? Maybe not. They can't be as ready to play as Carson Beck because Carson Beck's already played a bunch of football. He's already won a bunch of football games. And then for Ohio State, the appeal, again, very real. Premier program, could be coming off a national championship season. Best young wide receiver in all of college football, who Dan Lanning accurately described as being NFL ready right now. You could have him for your final year. Allow that to rekindle some of the NFL draft stock that you lost. I like this move for Carson Beck personally. I think either of those stops could lead to success. But for a guy that has NFL prospects, legitimate NFL prospects, to understand, I took a step back this year and I feel like I can get back to what I was a couple of years ago. I mean, he might have been the number 1 overall pick in the draft if he had come out following the 2023 season. But he came back to Georgia and it didn't go as well as it was planned. But he can go find a better situation around him. And he can go win a lot of football games. Now, if I were Carson Beck, would I go to Miami or Ohio State? I'd go to Ohio State. Miami's undergoing some more turnover. They've got talent on the roster, to be sure. But nobody is as talented a wide receiver as Jeremiah Smith. Nobody will make you look better than Jeremiah Smith. Will Howard, I think, went from an afterthought as an NFL quarterback to, kind of feels like he should be a 3rd or 4th round flyer at the very least. I don't see a Will Howard isn't good enough to be a backup quarterback in the NFL. Look at the throws he's making week in and week out against playoff defenses, and we'll see how he does against Texas. So I'd go to Ohio State just for Jeremiah Smith, but the appeal of going to Miami, you're playing an easier schedule. You might be able to look a little bit better than you would going through the gauntlet of the Big Ten. But where Carson Beck ends up, that is now the biggest domino to fall in the offseason next. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.